Jai Hind everyone, myself A.K. Dubey, Assistant Professor in Department of Mechanical Engineering, Ajay Kumar Garg Engineering College, Ghaziabad. The topic which I am going to discuss here is thick and thin cylinders. Now, I will cover here cylinders, then thin cylinders, stress analysis in thin cylinders, problem based on thin cylinders, after that thick cylinders, stress analysis in thick cylinders, Lehm's equation, problem based on thick cylinders, then compound cylinders. So, I will introduce cylinders. In many engineering applications, cylinders are frequently used for transporting or storing of liquids, gases or fluids. For example, pipes, boilers, storage tanks, etc. These cylinders are subjected to fluid pressures. When a cylinder is subjected to internal pressure, at any point on the cylinder wall, three type of stresses are induced on three mutually perpendicular planes. Okay. So, whenever cylinder is subjected to fluid pressure, basically three type of stresses are developed, and these three stresses are mutually perpendicular, and they are, first one is hoop या hoop या circumferential stress sigma c. This is directed along the tangent to the circumference and tensile in nature. So, because of this there is increase in diameter. Because of this stress, dia may increase. Now, second stress is longitudinal stress. This stress is directed along the length of the cylinder. This is also tensile in nature and tends to increase the length. Okay. It acts in this direction. This is the length of the cylinder. So, in longitudinal direction it acts and it will try to increase the length of the cylinder. Now, third is the radial pressure PR. It is compressive in nature. Magnitude is equal to the fluid pressure on the inside wall and 0 on the outer wall if it is open to the atmosphere. So, out of these three stresses, hoop stress, longitudinal stress is tensile in nature, and this radial pressure is compressive in nature. Now, this is the diagram. Suppose this is a cylinder whose cross section is given. It is a hollow cylinder and fluid has been kept under pressure inside the cylinder. How the hoop stress will arise, it has been shown here. Okay, this is the direction of hoop stress induced. Now, if it is a cylinder and the fluid is under pressure inside the cylinder, so what will be the direction of longitudinal stress? The direction of longitudinal stress is this much. It will act along in the direction of length of the cylinder. Now, radial pressure PR, when the cylinder is subjected to fluid pressure, it acts radially. Okay. This is the radial pressure. Now, if I consider any element on the cylindrical wall, I can show the three stresses induced. Okay. So, this will be the hoop stress, this will be the longitudinal stress, and this will be the radial pressure. If it is exposed to atmosphere, outer surface, so here radial pressure is 0, but at the inner surface there is a radial pressure PR. Now, I will start with thin cylinders. So, what are the thin cylinders? Basically, a thin cylinder या cylindrical या spherical shell is considered to be thin when the metal thickness is small compared to internal dia. So what can I say? If the ratio of thickness to diameter is less than 1/20, then it is considered as thin cylinders, otherwise it is thick cylinder. So I can say, suppose thickness is T and internal dia is D. So ratio this T by D, if less than 1/20, then it is considered as thin, otherwise thick cylinder. Now here the magnitude of radial pressure is very small compared to the other two stresses, hoop stress and longitudinal stress. That is why this radial pressure can be neglected. Now if it is a cylinder, hollow cylinder, which is filled with the fluid, means this cylinder is under pressure. Okay. The stresses acting along the circumference of the cylinder is called circumferential stress, as I told you, and stress acting along the length of the cylinder is known as longitudinal stress. Means if it is a cylinder and it has been filled with the fluid under pressure, so this will be the direction of circumferential stress, which is along the circumference, and this will be the direction of the longitudinal stress along the length of the cylinder. Now if you fill the cylinder with fluid and that fluid is exerting some pressure on the cylinder, then bursting may take place. That cylinder may burst. In order to avoid that bursting under the pressure of fluid, we have to design such a cylinder which can bear that much pressure. Ultimately, we will come to that point, how the thickness is determined. Okay. So if I see this is a cylinder and fluid is here under the pressure, if bursting is along the circumference, means these are the pressure acting on the wall. Okay. If it will burst circumferentially, means its dia will increase and it will burst finally. Okay. So in order to avoid the bursting, let the material of the cylinder is offering a resisting stress sigma c. So this sigma c is the resisting stress induced in the material. Okay. And here the pressure which is acting inside the cylinder is P. So P here is the internal pressure and sigma c is the circumferential stress. Then I can find the value of the sigma c, which is a hoop stress. What is the value of hoop stress in the terms of T and diameter of the cylinder in order to avoid the bursting. So this is a cut section of the cylinder. Okay. This is the thickness of the wall of the cylinder. This is the thickness of the wall of the cylinder, and stress induced in the material is sigma c, and pressure, fluid pressure acting is P. Since I have considered the elementary length of the cylinder, so elementary length of the cylinder is say dl. Okay. then I can evaluate the circumferential hoop stress. This hoop stress can be evaluated. Okay. So, this is the another diagram. If pressure is acting like this on the wall of cylinder, hoop stress induced in the material is sigma c, and d is the internal dia of the cylinder, dl is the elementary length of the cylinder, and t is the thickness of the cylindrical wall. This is T. Now, I can equate the bursting force and resisting force. So, after equating the bursting force and resisting force, I can find the value of sigma c. So, again the same diagram it has been shown here. So, this is the elementary length of the cylinder. Now, I am considering a elemental area on the cylindrical wall, and this elementary area is say dA. Okay. The radial distance of this elementary area is say r, this angle is theta, this is d theta. So, what about this? This is the arc length and this is r d theta. So, in order to find this elemental area dA, I will multiply with the elementary length dl. Okay, so after multiplying with the elementary length dl, I can find the elementary area dA. This elementary area dA can be calculated. If area is known and we are known about the pressure acting on the wall, so that pressure will also act on that elemental area. So, multiplication of pressure and area will give the force acting on that elemental portion of the area, elemental area. Okay. So, this will be the direction of force which will act on this elemental area. Okay. So, if I see this is the direction of force and this force is inclined at angle theta with the horizontal. So, this force has two components, one along this and one along this, means one horizontal and one vertical component. So, this force is say dF. Okay. The force on the elementary area dF equal to P into dA, and this dA is nothing but r into d theta into dl. Okay. Now, putting r in terms of d by 2. So, dF equal to P into d by 2 into dl into d theta. Now, horizontal component of this force, as I told you, this force has two components, one horizontal and one vertical. So, dFx is the horizontal component and that is P into d by 2 into dl cos theta into d theta, and vertical component dFy equal to P into d by 2 into dl into sin theta into d theta. This is the vertical component. Now, see, the horizontal component cancel out when integrated over the semicircular portion, as there will be another equal and opposite horizontal component on the other side of the vertical wall. Means, if I integrate it, this horizontal component over this semicircular portion from 0 to pi. Okay, so this because dF is in this direction dFx and there is equal and opposite force in this direction as well. Okay, so if I integrate it, I can find Fx in this direction and Fx in this direction, and this get cancelled. These are equal and opposite. Now only force left is vertical component. So if I integrate that vertical component between the limits 0 to pi, okay, I may find the bursting force acting on the cylindrical wall. So cylindrical wall pe whatever bursting force is there, that can be calculated, and it comes out just by integrating it 0 to pi p into d by 2 into dl into sin theta into d theta. So after integration and putting the limits, this reduces to p into dl into d. This is the bursting force, where this d into dl is the projected area of the curved surface. So if it is the curved surface, its projected area will be like this, and it is like a rectangle. So pressure into area of the rectangle will give the bursting force. Now resisting force, and this resisting force comes because of that circumferential stress या hoop stress. So that on the basis of hoop stress, I may find the resisting force 2 into sigma c into T into dl, where T is the thickness of the cylindrical wall, sigma c is the hoop stress or circumferential stress, and dl is the elemental length. So under equilibrium, this bursting force must be equal to the resisting force. If I equate, then I find 2 into sigma c into T into dl equal to p into d into dl. On solving this, I will find this sigma c hoop stress या circumferential stress p into d upon 2t. So this is the way how to calculate the circumferential stress. Now after calculating the circumferential stress, I will find the longitudinal stress. I will tell you how this longitudinal stress is calculated. This is the another method to calculate the hoop stress. Now longitudinal stress, this is the cylinder which is under pressure, which is under fluid pressure P, and this is the direction of pressure acting on the end wall of the cylinder. So suppose ends are as I know, the ends are circular, and thickness of that circular plate say T something, okay. So longitudinal stress will act like this in this direction, okay. Means the stress offered by the material in the longitudinal direction is sigma L. Sigma L is the resisting force in the longitudinal direction offered by the end part of the material, yeah, circular end of the cylinder. Now how this longitudinal stress sigma L is calculated? So here longitudinal bursting force which acts on the end of cylinder, and that is P into pi by 4 d square. So if it is a cylinder, these are the ends and this cylinder is under pressure P. So this is the direction of pressure, this is the direction of pressure which will act perpendicularly on the circular end of the cylinder. So what is the force exerted by this pressure? That is P into area of the circle. So what is the area of the circle? Pi by 4 d square, where d is the dia because ends are closed. Let sigma L longitudinal stress on the material of the cylinder, then what is the resisting force? So this is the resisting force, sigma L into pi into d into t. So, I am going to tell this is the circle. If the thickness of this is t, if I say thickness is t, then what is the area? Circumference pi d t. Circumference pi d into t is the area of this circular end, and this is the resisting area. So, if we multiply with the resisting stress, I will find the resisting force. So, under equilibrium condition, as I told you, bursting force must be equal to the resisting force. So, P into pi by 4 d square must be equal to sigma L into pi into d into t. Okay. On simplification, I will find this sigma L equal to P into d by 4t. This is the value of longitudinal stress induced in the cylinder or cylindrical material. So, if I compare the hoop stress and longitudinal stress, so I may see hoop stress is twice that of longitudinal stress. Now, another way to find this longitudinal stress, force due to fluid pressure, which is a bursting force, P into area on which P is acting. So, P is acting on this area pi by 4 d square, because it's a circular. Then resisting force sigma L, area on which sigma L is acting. So, then sigma L into pi d t, and this is circumference and thickness of the circular end. Under equilibrium condition, again it is calculated sigma L as P d by 4t. Now, evaluation of strains. Since the material is under biaxial stress system, one is hoop stress and one is longitudinal stress, and these two stresses are mutually perpendicular, as it has been shown in the figure. Then strains due to these stresses, that is circumferential and longitudinal strain, are obtained by applying the Hooke's law and Poisson's theory for elastic material. So, once we are known about the two mutually perpendicular stresses, then in any direction we can find the strain. In the direction of hoop stress, I can find the hoop strain, and in the direction of longitudinal stress, I can find the longitudinal strain, because these two stresses are mutually perpendicular. So, using this Poisson's theory of elastic material and Hooke's law, these strains can be finally calculated. So, suppose this is a element on which two stresses, one sigma c and one sigma L is acting, and these two stresses are mutually perpendicular. So, in the direction of hoop stress, circumferential strain, yeah, I can say hoop strain, can be calculated as epsilon c, and this epsilon c is equal to hoop stress upon Young's modulus minus mu times longitudinal stress upon Young's modulus. So, hoop strain can be calculated. Putting the value of sigma c in terms of sigma L, as we all know, sigma c is equal to twice sigma L. So, this can be simplified as hoop strain sigma L upon E into 2 minus mu. This is the hoop strain. Now, this hoop strain is also change in dia upon the original dia, because it is a circumferential strain. So, I can find the change in circumference upon the original circumference. After simplifying, I can get this hoop strain as sigma d by d, because pi del d by pi d. This is change in circumference upon original circumference. So, pi get cancelled, it comes out as sigma d by d, and this must be equal to this. The hoop strain epsilon c equal to del d by del d by d equal to p into d upon 4 into t into e into 2 minus mu. This I have told you already. Now, longitudinal strain, epsilon L equal to sigma L upon E minus mu sigma C by E. So, putting the value of sigma C again in terms of sigma L, this epsilon L can be reduced in terms of sigma L and E and mu. So, epsilon L equal to sigma L by E into 1 minus 2 mu. And again we know this longitudinal strain equal to change in length upon original length. Okay. So, this is also equal to sigma L by E 1 minus 2 mu. Putting the value of sigma L, the epsilon L equal to P into D upon 4 T E 1 minus 2 mu. So, these are the two strains calculated. Now, next is the volumetric strain. So, as we all know, volumetric strain is nothing but the ratio of change in volume to the original volume. Now, this change in volume can be calculated. If a cylinder is subjected to fluid pressure, its dia say changing and it becomes del D, initial dia is D, final length is L plus del L, and del L is the change in length. Once we are known about the changes in dimensions, then we can find the final dimensions, and initial dimensions are known to us. Okay. On the basis of those initial dimensions and change in dimensions or final dimensions, I can find the change in volume. The change in volume is the final volume minus initial volume. Okay. So, how will I find that final volume? Final area of cross section into final length. So, suppose change in dia is del D. So, what is the final dia? D plus del D. Change in length is del L. Then what is the final length? L plus del L. Okay. So, this is the cross section and this is the length, the final cross section and final length. Multiply these two, and after simplifying and neglecting the small quantities, like this being a small quantity can be neglected, this being a small quantity can be neglected, this being a small quantity can be neglected. After simplifying this, I can find the final volume as pi by 4 d square L plus 2 L d del D plus d square into del L. Okay. So, this is the final volume and we are known about the initial volume. So, just by subtracting that initial volume with the final volume, we can find the change in volume. The change in volume del V equal to pi by 4 d square L plus 2 L d into del D plus d square del L minus pi by 4 d square L. Okay. So, del D comes out as this much. So, once we are known about the change in volume and initial volume is known to us, then this volumetric strain can be calculated. After simplifying this, it becomes del L upon L plus twice into del D by D. So this del L by L is nothing but the longitudinal strain, and this del D by D is nothing but the circumferential strain. So volumetric strain is the sum of longitudinal strain plus 2 times of the circumferential strain. So putting the value of epsilon L and putting the value of epsilon C, which we just calculated, okay, this volumetric strain can be calculated, and this comes out as PD by 4 TE 5 minus 4 mu. This is the volumetric strain. Now maximum shear stress. So once we are known about the two stresses acting on the at any point on the material of the cylinder, then maximum shear stress can be calculated. So since the two principal stresses are hoop stress and longitudinal stress, then maximum shear stress is tau max, and that is sigma C minus sigma L by 2, because sigma C is maximum normal stress minus minimum normal stress, and these are nothing but the principal stresses as well, because no shear stress is acting on the plane on which these stresses are acting, and that by 2. Just by putting the value of sigma C, PD by 2T minus PD by 4T upon 2, so it is simplified as tau max, maximum shear stress, as PD upon 4T. So this is all about the today's lecture for thin cylinders. Thank you.